Good evening, everybody. I'd like to reconvene the House Transportation, Finance, and Policy Committee to continue our discussion on House File 4. I want to thank everybody for coming back, and we will proceed with continued testimony. And then immediately following the testimony, there are several amendments that we will be debating and discussing. After that, we'll have some final comments from the author, and then we'll proceed to a vote. So that's the plan for the rest of the evening. And again, thank you to the public for your active involvement and coming back this evening as well. I wanted to make an announcement that we have an interpreter. We have interpretive services this evening. Juan Pablo will be our translator, and so if anyone needs to avail themselves of that service, we have it as we had it this morning. So with that, we will begin, and our first, we have several faith leaders, as we had this morning, to start us off. Our first testifier is Rabbi Shosh Dworsky, who is representing the Minnesota Rabbinical Association, joining us online, I believe. And Rabbi, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. And just another reminder to the testifiers, we have limited time, and to give everybody an opportunity to testify, we really ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and that will serve our hearing very well. So, is Rabbi Dworsky with us?
Yes.
Rabbi, welcome to the Transportation Committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? And
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Chairperson Hornstein, and thank you to everyone who worked so tirelessly on this bill that I care so passionately about. My name is Rabbi Shosh Dworsky. I serve as Associate Chaplain at Carleton and St. Olaf Colleges in Northfield, where I am right now, though I live in St. Paul. So this morning I drove 40 miles here and will soon be driving home. There is no other way for me to get to work. So I have a personal investment in HF4. It will make the roads safer for all of us. And we are all responsible for each other's safety and well-being. So to me, passing HS4 means we are taking care of one another. Our Israelite ancestors were migrants, fleeing hunger, migrating to Egypt to find refuge. And then along came a king who did not understand their presence, did not remember the contributions of their ancestor Joseph, but saw them only as other, as strangers, to be feared and oppressed. Wrong. We teach our children today not to see the stranger as other, but to identify with their experience and their suffering, and we try to alleviate it. I feel called to support HF4 so that none of us are guilty of standing by as the stranger or newcomer suffers unfairly in our midst. This bill is designed to protect and preserve human life, but our tradition goes farther. We value supporting not just life, but joyful and meaningful life. Our traveler's prayer in Judaism says, "Bring me to my destination in joy." Well, there is no joy if you are traveling in fear. All Minnesotans should be allowed to travel and reach their destinations in joy, and this legislation moves us in that direction. Many Jews of recent generations have stories of living in fear, living in hiding. In 20th century Europe, we were told we can't even drive cars. We can't drive cars or even ride bicycles. It is such a humiliating way to be seen and to see yourself. I'm one of the lucky ones to be here, and I want us here together to be building a different, better, kinder, more accepting, and more joyful Minnesota. Thank you all very much for all of your work.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Our next testifier is Bishop Donald Kettler, and the bishop is also joining us via Zoom. And please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, Bishop. The bishop with us.
Yes.
Thank you. Bishop Donald Kettler, Roman Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of St. Cloud. I'm the Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of St. Cloud, as I said. My position and faith holds that we always should respect the dignity of every human being. I also believe we must support efforts to prevent the separation of family members from one another. I'm the pastor for about 130,000 Roman Catholic people in 16 counties of central Minnesota. This includes about a dozen communities of Latino folks. Many of our people are documented residents, some are undocumented. I work to get everyone documented, but I want today to ask that legislation providing a non-compliant Class D driver's license for undocumented immigrants be supported and passed for people living in the state of Minnesota. My undocumented people have limited ability to get to work, to school, health services, church, and even family members to get together with each other. My recognizing their dignity as a human being and their right to receive basic human, family, and community opportunities calls me to ask to support the need for a Class D driver's license. Obviously, also regarding meeting certain criteria. I believe that the licenses will make our roads safer. There will be an increase in the percentage of insured drivers in our state, and they will be driving legally. I ask that you support and work for HF 1163 legislation. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you, and thank you for your service of our people.
Thank you so much, Bishop Kettler. Next on our list is Minerva Castillo, I believe has come from Worthington. You have an online,
Hello, Chair and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Minerva, and I am here with other young leaders from grades 6 through 11, and we attend District 518 in Worthington. We are here because we worked very hard in this election cycle to get some of you elected because you were in favor of the driver's license bill. You committed to us that you would work hard to provide our parents, our community, our workforce access to a driver's license. Many of us here are in after-school activities, and many of us, when we look in the stands, sadly can't see our parents because of a lack of access to a license. Could you imagine what it would feel like for you not to be able to take your child to a doctor's appointment or to attend their activities? Well, we have. For many of us, we have never been outside of Worthington. We have never seen the rest of Minnesota's beauty because our parents lack a driver's license. While our friends post photos of them snowmobiling, fishing, hiking, or going to the Mall of America, we only like their posts and wish and pray that when we get older, we can experience that. When our parents can't take our siblings to a doctor because of a ride, we see the pain and heartache they go through. Just like we have the power to get involved, you have the power to create opportunities for our well-being. If you vote in favor of the driver's license bill, you can make the wish of traveling to the Mall of America or the Boundary Waters or being able to drive to Mankato or the cities for a dentist appointment. We ask that you all vote in favor of the driver's license bill so young citizens can look in the crowder stands and see their parents' proud faces while they perform in a debate, in a game, play, or anything that we young people choose to do. Thank you from Worthington, Minnesota.
thank you so much for that very compelling testimony, and to all the youth that gathered in Worthington. That was very, very powerful. Our next testifier is Elizabeth Vega. I believe Elizabeth is here. Excellent. Welcome to the committee, and please say your name for our record and then proceed with your testimony.
Mi nombre es Lisbeth Vega. Gracias por recibirme. Soy conserje y trabajo en el turno de la noche en un supermercado de comida. Soy miembro de CIU Local 26. Nuestro sindicato apoya este proyecto de ley porque ayudaría a muchas familias, incluyendo la mía. Este proyecto de ley es importante para mí personalmente porque mi esposo tiene que levantarse a las 2 de la mañana para recogerme al trabajo. Esto significa que mi hija tiene que quedarse sola en la casa cuando él hace eso, porque es de medianoche y ella está durmiendo. Intenté aprender a conducir, pero me pararon y fue muy frustrante y aterrador. Aquello me traumatizó mucho. La aprobación de este proyecto de ley ayudaría a mucha gente a perder el miedo a ser parados y ser detenidos. Ayudaría a la gente a no vivir con miedo, miedo a que los paren, miedo a ser deportados. Ayudaría a mejorar el empleo y los salarios, lo que ayudaría a nuestra economía. Yo pudiera conseguir un mejor empleo que tenemos si tuviera una licencia. Es difícil vivir con los bajos salarios que tenemos porque no podemos acceder a otros trabajos. Mucha gente de mi trabajo tiene los mismos miedos que yo. La gente de mi familia se enfrenta a estos mismos retos. Gente de todo el estado sufre por ello. La situación actual significa que no podemos conseguir trabajos más lejos y eso perjudica a nuestras familias. Nuestro estado será más seguro cuando aprueben este proyecto de ley. Ayudará a familias a poder conducir para poder comprar comida para nuestras familias o para llegar a nuestros trabajos. Votar sí significa que la gente no tendría miedo de conducir y podría hacer con seguridad lo que necesitamos hacer. Espero que aprueben este proyecto de ley y ayuden a familias de todo el estado. Gracias.
Hello, I will now translate for Lisbeth. Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Lisbeth Vega. I'm a janitor, and I work the night shift at a grocery store. I am a member of SCIU Local 26. Our union supports this bill because it would help so many families, including mine. This bill is important to me personally because my husband has to wake up at 2 a.m. to pick me up after my shift because I don't have a license. This means my daughter has to be left alone when he is doing this, because it's the middle of the night and she has to sleep. I tried to learn how to drive, but I was pulled over and it was extremely terrifying. What happened to me was very traumatizing. Passing this bill will help so many people lose the fear of being stopped and facing incarceration. It will help people stop living in fear. Fear of being stopped, fear of being deported. It would help improve jobs and wages, which would help our economy. I could get a better job with better hours if I had a license. It is hard to live on the low wages we face because we can't access other jobs. So many people in my work have the same fears as me. People in my family face the same challenges. People all over the state are suffering because of this. The current situation means we cannot get jobs further away, and it hurts our families. Our state will be more safe when you pass this bill. It will help families to be able to drive to get groceries or to go to our jobs. Voting yes would mean people wouldn't be afraid to drive and can safely do what they need to do. I hope you pass this bill and help families across the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Uriel Perez, also from representing Unite Here. So we have a couple of folks from labor here. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for our record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and everyone else. My name is Uriel Perez Espinosa, Uriel Perez Espinoza. I'm reading a testimony of one of our members. I'm not going to present anything from me. I'm from Unite Here, Local 17, the Hospitality Union, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities, and Rochester. The name of this person is Antonia Lara Carreto. For the record, ANTONIA Good evening, Chair, members, and general public. My name is Antonia Lara Carreto. I'm 49 years old, married, and I have two U.S. children of 20 and 14 years old. Literally, half of my life has been in Mexico, and the other half here in Richfield, Minnesota. And most importantly, I've been working 24 years in a union hotel, and I'm a proud member of Unite Here. My hotel got shut down during pandemic, and I had to go to another union hotel to work as a union member. Neither I nor my husband have a Minnesota driver license or a state ID. We both have worked hard to have decent place to live for our children. Unfortunately, in this land of opportunities, we haven't given the best to our children. Not having a driver license has deprived us to get a car and get a better paying job or a second job to have a better place to live instead of an apartment. We always have had to ask for the ride and wait in the hot and humid rain or cold and snowy Minnesota weather. We had to pay extra money to cash out our paychecks instead of opening a bank account. Not having a driver license deprive our kids to participate in extracurriculum activities. We would get a driver license or a state ID, we would have the opportunity to invest more and pay more taxes to our state, local, and federal economy by buying a car and car insurance, buying a house and house insurance. Perhaps having a car could help us to take our kids to a nice trip, to go on vacation and experience what many of your children have experienced when you took the time to go to Disneyland, Miami, or any other place. My union, Unite Here, has been involved in helping to pass driver licenses for all for almost 2 decades. The time is now. Please vote yes for driver license for all. Please say vote yes for HF4. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate, on a personal note, Mr. Espinoza, I met your brother Mariano about 20 years ago, and he was one of the first people to walk around the Capitol discussing this issue 20 years ago. And so I appreciate your testimony, and I appreciate his involvement.
I pass around your...
Give him my regards. Okay, next we have Kenzie O'Keefe. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kenzie O'Keefe. Good evening, Chair Hornstein, members of the committee, and everyone else that's here in the room. I am the head of Mobilization and Narrative Strategies at Pillsbury United Communities in Minneapolis. I'm here today on behalf of our staff, our board, and the people that we serve, and also in service to some of the leaders of this movement, several of whom are immigrant women who work for our organization, along with the Minnesota immigrant movement, and have been fighting for this right for more than a decade, this essential right for more than a decade. Pillsbury runs 4 community centers and 6 social enterprises in Minneapolis. We serve primarily Black and brown people and Indigenous people, immigrants and refugees, and people who live in poverty and who have very low incomes. We provide emergency services, stabilization support, and we take on projects that invest in the long-term prosperity and equity for people in our state. So we've seen firsthand how the inability to get a driver's license hinders the prosperity here and devastates families, creating emergencies that even further destabilize them. Families are being forced to choose between being law-abiding and meeting their most basic needs, as others have mentioned here already tonight. Getting to work, taking kids to school, getting to essential doctor's appointments, and so much more. Fear of getting caught and the consequences of getting caught, driving without a driver's license, create undue stress and trauma in families who are often already struggling due to the barriers and the lack of systemic support that comes from being undocumented. The inability for those who are undocumented to become licensed drivers has not made our roads and communities safer, again, as many have already noted. In fact, it's done the opposite. So I ask, our organization asks, that you do what's right and do your part to pass this bill this session and make sure that all Minnesotans have access to a legal path to being on the road. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Sonia Nunez Gibbs. Welcome. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Sonia Nunez Gibbs. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I have served as a bilingual ESP and teacher in our public schools for 16 years. I currently teach a program at Roosevelt High School. Go Teddies, the best high school in Minneapolis. My program is called Work-Based Learning. This program is part of the Career and Technical Education Department. This department teaches students in skills in automotive, carpentry, healthcare, welding, etc. Students over 16 may enroll in work-based learning with me. This program gives them a paid or unpaid work experience that they receive credit for, as well as my support in improving their work performance, resolving issues, and checking in with their supervisor. We also meet weekly to check in how they're doing with their job skills. Students do this work-based learning in all types of jobs, from office work, nursing homes, welding tool rooms, chiropractic offices, and many of these sectors are currently experiencing a difficult time finding workers. This program has very specific legal guidelines, and I am required by the state of Minnesota to complete a contract for each student during doing work-based learning between the student, myself, supervisor, and parent. Part of this contract is a transportation plan of how a student is going to get to and from their job independently. The student must have a driver's license in order to drive to work in this contract. If they do not, they must take public transportation. Public transportation is not always available for the student's job site or to their home location. Additionally, since most of the students are starting work around 3 or 4 p.m., they're often getting off work around 8 or 9 when it is dark and not always safe for our youth to be on public transportation. Many parents, understandably, do not allow their children to take buses or trains at this time. Additionally, in my previous capacity as bilingual support staff, I've had much contact with parents about attendance and other family events. When a student has a parent without a license, especially in elementary and middle school, they must take public transportation, and students often miss more school. For example, if a student has a doctor's appointment, the parent will not have time to get them on public transportation back to the school for a partial day, and thus the student misses a full day of instruction. Also, with all the students that I have met in 16 years, I want them all to take driver's education classes if they are going to be on the road. I urge you to consider the impact this bill would have on Minnesota youth as they navigate becoming adults and employees in our state. Please vote for House File number 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Claudia and Lucy Garcia. Welcome. Please
Thank
state
you.
your name and proceed.
Chair, members of the committee, good evening. My name is Claudia Garcia, and I work and I'm here on behalf of the city of Northfield. I'm the staff liaison to the Northfield Human Rights Commission, and I'm a proud product of immigrant parents. As I stand before you all to ask you to support the HF bill for the driver's license for all, I'll talk a little bit about that. And then this is Lucy Gonzalez Miron. And I'll talk about her in a bit. So the city of Northfield is supportive of this bill now and has been supportive of the driver's license for all campaign in previous years. A resolution was brought to the Northfield City Council in 2019 and passed in support of driver's license for all. The city of Northfield wanted you and all of our community members to know that this needs to pass, and we are here in support of that. A letter on behalf of the Northfield Human Rights Commission writes, the Human Rights Commission finds itself once again, as it did in 2019, proud of supporting the driver's license for all campaign. Lucy Gonzalez Miron, along with Mar Valdecantos and a lot of other community activists, worked tirelessly for many years. Minnesota used to be a state that allowed everyone to apply for a state ID or driver's license without consideration of the country of origin and immigration status. And that all changed in 2003 due to an executive order from the government for the governor at that time. Since then, the lives of many drivers has changed. They were no longer able to legally drive. Unfortunately, they were still driving because they needed to work, to take their young kids to school, go to the doctor's appointments, buy groceries, and go to their place of worship. The Northfield Human Rights Commission aligns and supports this HF4 bill, and we ask you to support this bill as well. Now, I would like to testify on my behalf as I sit here before you, the proud daughter of immigrant parents. I would like to tell you why I firmly believe you should all not only support, but I plead for you to vote for this bill to pass. I sit here to speak up for all the youth whom are a product of migration. I grew up in southern Minnesota, and I remember in 3rd grade learning what it really truly meant that my parents were immigrants and undocumented. Up until that point, I had been a straight A student. That year, my life changed. I remember my mom and dad sitting me down. Sorry. As the oldest of 3, to have that talk, the talk that no child should have at this young age. The talk included possible scenarios of one day they could be deported if they got stopped. I remember the feelings of worry overcame my mind during school. I could not concentrate, and my grades really suffered. My mental health significantly declined, and I could not even tell my parents in fear of giving them another problem. I could not be a normal kid. Every time my mother had to drive, I would panic. Every time I saw a police officer, I became petrified with fear. I feared every time my mom drove me to school, a doctor's appointment, to get the groceries, or if I had any extracurricular activities, or even to my friend's house, that she would get pulled over and deported. And I would have to take care of my siblings as a 3rd grader. This is the reality for many kids in the state of Minnesota and across the country. And this should not be their reality. There are so many problems that our community faces, and I ask you to help lessen one. Vote for the HF4 bill so that minimally those kids' parents can drive them legally and safely without fear that it could rip their family apart. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bueno, pues
Welcome.
buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening to all.
Mi nombre es Lucy
My name is Lucy.
y siempre desde que he estado en este bello
I've
país
always since I've been here in this beautiful country,
con lleno de oportunidades para
full of
todos,
opportunities for all of us.
pero lo único más grande que no hemos tenido,
Only thing that we have not had,
una licencia de conducir.
driver's license.
Y lo más triste es que
The saddest part
en donde quiera nos piden una
is
licencia,
wherever we go, we've been
¿verdad?
asked for it, right?
Y si tenemos una
And if we
emergencia,
have an emergency,
no tenemos cómo manejar,
we don't have a way to drive.
porque lo principal también es la salud.
Because the most
Me
important thing
pasó a
is
mí con mi
our
hija.
health. It happened with my daughter.
Ella tiene asma
She's asthmatic.
y yo no tener una licencia fue terrible para mí
With our driver's license,
porque ella no
was
podía ni hablar y yo
terrifying for
como pude me pude comunicar con
me. She was able
emergencias.
to speak, and I was able
Pero
somehow
ustedes
to
saben
communicate with
bien
emergency services.
que nosotros venimos a trabajar
But you know that we're here to work.
y también pagamos nuestros impuestos,
We pay our taxes.
pero lo que es licencias de conducir no tenemos y esa es una gran
We
necesidad.
do not have our driver's license, and that's a greater need right now.
Y no nomás hablo por mí, sino también por
I'm not
nuestra
speaking
comunidad.
For myself, but for the whole community.
Y una de esas experiencias grandes que tuve también en mi comunidad en Northfield
And one of those experiences that I had in my community in Northfield as well
fue hace un tiempo
was a long time ago.
y hubo tantas injusticias,
And it was so many injustices.
bebés
Babies.
cargan
Babies.
en el carro, las familias se transportan de un lugar a otro
Being families with the babies on their vehicles, getting themselves from one place to another.
pero por no tener una licencia dijeron, baja de tu carro y a caminar.
But they didn't have a driver's license, so they told them get off the vehicle and
Y los babies a cargar y en el frío.
they have to carry the babies on the cold weather.
Y yo me pregunto,
And I asked myself,
aquí en este gran país defendemos mucho, o
In this
defienden mucho
great
todos,
country, we
a
all
los
defend
niños,
the children
a las mamás
Moms.
y a los animalitos.
and animals.
¿Y qué estamos haciendo ahorita?
So what are we doing right now?
Emergencias pasan, niños en el
Emergencies
frío.
happen, babies on the cold.
Yo creo que les pido en nombre de todos nosotros
ask you in the
y
name
en
of
nombre
all of us,
también de
and in the
nuestras comunidades que
Our
hemos estado en
communities,
apoyo.
and we have
Jovita,
supported one another.
Jovita Morales tiene mucho tiempo en la lucha
Jovita Morales has been fighting for a while.
y siempre defendiendo el
And
derecho
always defending the
para
right
todos nosotros como
for all of
inmigrantes.
us as immigrants.
Por favor,
Please,
se los pido en nombre de toda
I
la
beg you,
humanidad.
on the name of all the humanity and here.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Jovita Morales. Oh, it's, okay.
Buenas tardes, Kimi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jovita Morales. Sorry, Claudia made me cry, and Lucy too. I know Claudia since she was 14, and I can't remember her when I was in that time. My name is Jovita Morales, founder of the Minnesota Immigrant Movement and community leaders of the driver's license, built in Minnesota since 2008. Today, I stand here to represent and advocate for those who are not present in this room. Our community carries a huge pain for not having access to a driver's license for many years. Immigrants' parents cannot take their children to recreational and educational activities, as everybody was mentioned. And the result of that, our youth are being left behind. And it's not our children's fault that these laws are causing and equitable access opportunity for their future. Parents are afraid to drive. Families have been traumatized, and therefore generational trauma and mental health continue to impact our communities until this day. As a woman, as an indigenous woman of color, in 2007, I began working as a volunteer at the front desk in a nonprofit organization in South Minneapolis. When my kids joined the after-school program, one night, my kids from the White House Community Center went to field trip. I was getting ready with my partner to go home with my kids when I received a call that they had an accident. All I heard is they fell down in the water when I received that call, one of the teachers. I was shocked because I knew that they didn't know how to swim. I never took them to the program of the swimming. Both my son and my daughter was on the school bus. The 35W bridge collapsed. After that trauma, going back and forth to the clinics, I was desperate because I was studying, I was doing volunteer, I was working part-time job. So I decided to take the vehicle and drive without having the legally drive in Minnesota. I have been here for 15 years with Mujeres en Liderazgo that nació at the White House Community Center, and then we called Mesa Latina after in 2012. In 2015, we called the Minnesota Immigrant Movement, fighting for this initiative that is not passed yet, and has deprived us from our human rights. We have done a lot of work in our part, such as doing door knocking around the Minnesota. I remember my team, we went door knocking to everybody, testimonial to the legislators, vigil, phone banking, lobbying, community meetings. We have the Aztec dancing and ceremonial until they stop us to come doing that. Hunger strikes, and even campaign outside in the Capitol. How many times we use us outside doing this? No one wanted to take this initiative for many long time. Organizations, churches, community, legislators. And now I'm so proud that everybody is there. In the middle of the storm, we are here. So, Chair and members of the committee, please vote yes on this. And let's work together. I'm really positive. Since I took the vehicle, now I'm a leader in the community. I have job, really good job. I can have access for my kids, everything. So thank you so much. And again, my name is Jovita, founder of Mesa Latina and Mujeres en Liderazgo, Minnesota Immigrant Movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we want to keep moving here. Thank you for your testimony. And next we have Marjorie Perez, followed by Angelica Bello. I'll sort of say who's on deck here so we can continue to move along, and the next person will know that to get in position. So thank you so much. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name is Marjorie Perez, and I actually work in the automotive industry. And so actually in Minnesota, you can purchase a car without having a social security card. But you have to have an IT number and a consular ID to buy it. So, and this is actually a huge problem because one of the things, the consular ID is not every country has a consular ID. like El Salvador, Peru. There is many countries that they don't offer you a consular ID, so we can do the loan, but we cannot title the car under their names. So that's a huge problem for a lot of people. There is like many countries that they cannot buy a car at all because we cannot title the car under their names. Another thing is the insurance. So the only company that works with people who doesn't have a driver license is actually Progressive. However, it's super expensive. Actually, for one person, it could be up to $500, and I've seen it before many times. Yeah, only for the insurance card monthly is $500. And that makes it really hard for a lot of people. And the other thing is the interest rates. So for a lot of people who doesn't have a driver license, they can get approved with a couple of banks, but it doesn't really give you a lot of options. So a driver license will give us options to do loans through different small banks, and so that will lower the interest rate by a lot. Because normally an interest rate, it could be up to 24%, but having a driver license could be like 10%, 6%. They can apply for lower interest rates. So that can lower the monthly payment of a regular car from like $700 to like $300 to $400, making it affordable to own a car. So everything together for a lot of people, they can be paying a monthly payment of up to $1,000 just because they don't have a driver license. Having a driver license, it will lower everything to like $500. So that will make affordable owning a car. And let's remember that like here in Minnesota, public transportation is really hard. So driving is actually not a luxury, it's a necessity that we have in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Angelica Bello, followed by Rodrigo Cala. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hola, Donate, Nano Toca Angélica. My name is Angélica. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Angélica. A todos que han dado su testimonio, muchas gracias. Y gracias a todos que están aquí. Los que no están aquí, estamos aquí para ustedes. Esta lucha va a seguir. Y si no llegaron hoy, lleguen el jueves. My name is Angélica, and I am currently an Augsburg student. I am representing Augsburg, Indigenous Roots in St. Paul, the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, and the Education Department of the Science Museum. My story, my family's story, is a reflection of the unwillingness from you all who are empowered to pass this bill. Please, pass this bill. Raise your hand if you have a child. Raise your hand if you have a loved one. Everyone around us has someone we care about. And I'm a proud product of my mom. I'm also a DACA recipient, and as a DACA recipient, it has also been hard to have family members without a driver's license. Due to not having a driver's license, I grew up with my mom finding rides to doctors, to conferences, to the grocery store, by people, and if it wasn't by people, it was by taxi. If it wasn't by taxi, it was by bus. I remember also biking with groceries to go and provide these foods for my siblings. Driver's license is really important because sometimes when you don't have a car, when you don't have a mode of transportation, you're pushed to do certain things to get income. In the case of my mother, my mom had to use her body as a source of income. Raise your hand if you have a loved one who has to sacrifice their body to make income. That's privilege. And that's also the negligence from you all not passing this bill. As I stand here, I stand with a lot of youth. I have a lot of friends and a lot of people around me that are affected due to not having a driver's license. I've given several rides to people that don't have a driver's license and don't have a car due to the fear of deportation or due to the fear of being stopped by a cop or even just the fear. Driver's license is a safety net for all people. Know your humanity and know that you are all in these chairs because of us. We are voting. Our people are voting, and if you don't pass this bill, people are gonna vote you all out. Serve us the way that you say you do. And I'm here to say that I hope that you will pass this license bill because it will help people not only economically and with transportation, but if you care about mental health and physical health, it also affects people in that way. I stand here today and I can say I'm a proud product of my mom, who is a single mother of 4 kids, who did everything she could to feed me, to provide a roof on top of my head, same way your parents did or same way that your guardians did. So the least that you all can do for our communities is to pass this bill. Pass this bill now. Because our community is going to keep fighting and we're not going to leave. We're going to stay here and we're going to continue to stay here. And little do you all know, we're the generation that's coming, that's going to be taking up your seats. So please be of service, or else we're going to come and take your seats as well. Please pass the driver's license for all now. It's really necessary, and it's really urgent. So stop being so comfortable. Please, do it for all these people. There's mothers out here who have been fighting for more than 10 years. If you all know, if you all have something that you've been fighting for such a long time, you all know what that's like, then you all have the power right now. You are sitting in these chairs. You have the power. Use it. Use it to help our communities and to actually uplift us. That's it. Thank you. Tlasokamati.
I understand the interest in clapping, but we want to keep going here. Okay, Rodrigo Cala and Esperanza Dominguez and Jesus Israel Moreno after that. And thank you very much for coming to the committee, and please state your name for the record and
Okay.
welcome.
Hi, my name is Rodrigo Cala. Hi, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the House Transportation Committee. My name is Rodrigo Cala. I am one of the members of Shareground Farmers Co-op, a marketing co-op based on St. Paul. This co-op has more than 50 farmers that we work with searching and selling produce from rural communities to selling to the urban communities. So we bring food to the cities. I have four children. Today I am here to share my story about the challenges of tied to not being able to have a driver's license. As an agricultural person, I went through the same situation in the past. Not having the ability to provide transportation for my kids to go to schools, doctor appointments, and other essential activities. I am speaking on behalf of those unheard voices that until today are hiding in the shadows and struggling because they don't have a driver's license. And I live in fear of being separated from their families. This is a huge issue all around greater Minnesota, where people don't have freedom, rights, and privilege. I'm working with Latino Economic Development Center, Centro para el Desarrollo Económico Latino. I work in different communities around the state, like Owatonna, Northfield, Foley, Waseca, Austin, Madelia, Lone Prairie, you name it. I work in there with farmers because I am one of them. I see the same issues in many industries: dairy industry, meat packing industry, construction companies, farms of different types. I see the same issues because people don't have the ability to have a driver's license, but for one way or another, they're going to work. COVID-19 changed everything. At that point, they named us essential workers. So at least we deserve to have a driver's license. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, please help pass this bill. Now, I encourage and I hope you take the right decision. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next, Esperanza Dominguez. Maybe Esperanza's online? No? Okay, we'll just move on to Jesus Israel Moreno, who is online, I believe. I want to remind testifiers to do your best to keep in that 2-minute frame because we want everyone who signed up to be able to testify. And if you go over, that might be problematic. We'd like to really start our debate and discussion at or around 8 o'clock tonight, and that should be enough time for everybody to testify if you keep within limits. Is Jesus is here? Okay.
Yep.
Oh. Jesus, welcome, Israel Moreno, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Jesus Moreno. Hello, chairs, or Horstein, and community members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify. My name is Jesus Moreno. I am 43 years old, and I have lived in Minnesota for 20 years. And I'm a volunteer with Unidos, Minnesota. All these years, I have suffered from not having a driver license, and it has affected me economically and socially. Economically, because I can't go to work even when I have the full intention. It's not possible because there are barriers to getting a car or getting insurance. And if we manage to do so, we live in fear or being stopped. We will very much like to have the job opportunity away from our home, because I know that the state right now needs more workers and there are many jobs, but because we don't have a license, we reject good opportunities. This reason also affects businesses because we cannot support and generate loses dominant effect. Socially, we cannot congregate as we would like in the religion that we like. Go out to meet with family, our children, take them to the doctors, and we deny them the right to meet with their relatives or play, support, and grow spiritually and physically. Our children fear our departure and do not know if we return or not. The same search for happiness in a state we call him is more complicated. This is why we want to ask you to support House File 4, driver license for all. God bless you all, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Concepcio Arce, also joining online.
Buenas noches. Good
Welcome.
evening. Mi nombre es Concepción Arce. Vivo en San Cloud, Minnesota. Soy una líder de Fe y Justicia Unidos de Minnesota. Llegué a los Estados Unidos en el 90. Vivo en Minnesota desde el 2001. Trabajé por muchos años en la agricultura y limpieza en un hotel. Con mi trabajo compré una casa en San Clau porque ahorré dinero, pero no he podido obtener una licencia de conducir. Mi esfuerzo y trabajo contribuyen a la economía. He estado del Estado porque pago mis impuestos. Yo necesito una licencia de conducir porque debo de manejar para ir a mis citas del doctor, comprar mis medicamentos, hacer mis compras necesarias y ir a la iglesia los domingos. También cuando soy voluntaria en mi parroquia. La parroquia es muy importante y necesito una licencia para visitar a mis hijos, compartir con mis nietos y a todos los legisladores les pido que restauren la licencia de conducir porque es muy necesaria para todos. Gracias.
My name is Concepcion Arce, and I live in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I am leader of Faith and Justice Unidos, Minnesota. I came to the United States in the 90s and have lived in Minnesota since 2001. I worked for many years in the agriculture and cleaning rooms in a hotel. With my work, I bought a house in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Because I save money, but I have not been able to get a driver license. My efforts and work contribute to the state economic because I pay my taxes. I need a driver license because I must try to go to my doctor's appointments and buy my medication, to do my necessary shoppings, and go to the church on Sundays. And when I volunteer, and my parish is very important to me because I volunteer there. Family is very important too. And I need a license to visit my children and share with my grandchildren. To all the legislators, I ask you to restore the driver license because it is necessary for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Mauricia Velades. Mauricia here?
Hi, yes, we're online.
Excellent. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Su nombre y luego.
Mi nombre es Mauricia Vidales, voluntaria de Unidos, Minnesota.
My name is Mauricia Vidales, a volunteer with Unidos, Minnesota.
Okay. Buenas tardes, Chair Hornstein y miembros del comité.
Good evening, Chair Hornstein and members of the committee.
Hoy estoy hablando para pedir su apoyo para el Bill HF4 y el Bill de licencias para todos.
Today, I am speaking out to ask for your support for Bill HF4, the driver's licenses for all bill.
Estoy aquí hablando como madre de 2 hijos y de un esposo enfermo. Hemos batallado mucho sin licencias porque mi esposo sufre de una enfermedad crónica.
I am here speaking as a mother of 2 children and a wife to a sick husband. We have struggled far too much without a driver's license because my husband suffers from a chronic illness.
Y a veces su enfermedad es en la madrugada. El miedo a manejar y más de noche, donde hay más probabilidad que nos pare una policía, nos hace que tengamos que pasar la noche en sufrimiento.
Sometimes he gets sick throughout the middle of the night with the fear of driving, and even more so at night when there is a higher risk of being pulled over. This causes him to suffer.
También es un problema con mis hijos. Los niños, desde que están chicos, saben cuando se suben al carro que los papás tenemos miedo y ellos están viendo a sus alrededores.
It's also a problem with my children. Ever since my children were young, they knew that as soon as they stepped into the car, their parents were fearful and they were watchful of our surroundings.
Pero no se puede evadir. Los niños tienen que ir a las escuelas, al deporte y mi esposo ocupa ir al doctor.
But we can't avoid it. Our kids need to go to school, to sports, and my husband needs to go to the doctor.
A veces no es una opción no manejar.
Sometimes there is no other option but to drive.
Aparte de eso, pagamos mucho de aseguranza, ya que es más alto por no tener una licencia.
Apart from that, we pay far too much for insurance because it's more expensive because we don't have a state license.
Igualmente, una licencia es una forma de identificación válida. Hubo lugares en los que no se nos permitió rentar por no contar con esa licencia.
Similarly, a driver's license is a valid ID. There was many places that did not allow us to rent because we didn't have that state ID.
Llevo 17 años en Estados Unidos y nadie en nuestra familia ha tenido jamás algún récord criminal.
I have more than 17 years in the United States, and nobody in my family has ever had a criminal record.
Aún así, seguimos sin poder manejar.
And yet, we still can't drive.
Les pido que piensen en las mamás y familias que dependen de una licencia cada día.
I ask you to think of the mothers and families that depend on a license every day.
Ya que contar con una licencia no es un lujo, es una necesidad. Gracias.
Because having a license is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have Josefina Flandes. And I know she's here. I met her earlier. And after that, I just want to let Alex Palacios, who I believe is online, know that he is next.
Buenas noches a todos. Buenas tardes, presidente y miembros del Comité de Transportación. I speak English, but now I'm kind of nervous, so I'm going to speak in Spanish. Mi nombre es Josefina Flandes.
My name is Josefina Flandes.
Soy originaria de la Ciudad de
I'm actually
México.
from Mexico City.
Viví en Worthington
I lived in Portland for
17 años.
17 years.
7 años en Manqueiro.
7 years in Mankato.
Tengo 4 hijos.
I have 4 children.
2 de DACA y 2 nacidos aquí.
From Dhaka and 2 born here.
Estoy aquí para
I'm
decirles
here to tell you
lo difícil que es vivir sin una
the
licencia de manejo.
hardest that is to live without a driver's license.
Durante 20 años
In 20 years,
he enfrentado el día a día
I have faced day by day
el miedo de ser parada
the
y
fear
ser deportada.
to be stopped and deported.
He tenido que caminar a las
I
2,
have
3 de
to
la
walk
mañana
2, 3 in the morning
para llevar a mi hija
to
al
be able to
servicio de
take my
emergencia
daughter to the emergency room
en temperaturas bajo cero.
Temperatures below zero.
Y estamos hablando a veces
And
20
I'm
bajo cero.
speaking sometimes 20 below zero.
También es difícil
It's also hard
no poder llevar a mis hijos
not be able to take my
a los
children
eventos deportivos,
to the sporting events,
culturales,
cultural events,
musicales.
musical events.
Para mí, la
For
educación
me,
es
education,
muy importante.
it's very important.
Es la base
It's the base.
para mi familia,
For my family,
para el país,
for the country,
para el mundo entero.
for the whole entire world.
Esa es mi opinión.
That's my opinion.
Otra de las cosas que he
Something
tenido que
else
vivir
that I have to live
por no tener una licencia, y eso
for
fue
not being
difícil.
able to have a driver's license. And this is very hard.
Mi hija, ustedes
daughter,
saben cuando una hija se
You know,
gradúa,
when a daughter graduates,
uno como padre se siente
we
tan
as parents are
orgulloso.
so proud
El tener que ir a esa
to be
universidad,
able to go to that
conocer
university,
ese
to be able
edificio,
to see the building,
ver dónde ella va a
see
estudiar,
where she's going to go to school,
dónde va a quedarse a
where
dormir,
is she going to be sleeping,
disfrutar ese
to
momento.
enjoy that moment.
Eso no fue para mí.
I wasn't able to do that.
Ellos partieron sin mí.
They left without me.
No es fácil.
It's not easy.
No es fácil
It's not
no
easy
compartir ese
not to be able
momento
to share
tan
those
especial
moments,
como padre,
just special moments as parents,
solo por no tener una
just
licencia.
because we don't have a driver's license.
Ustedes han oído muchos testimonios.
You have heard so many testimonies.
Ojalá
I hope
que todos ellos
that all of those testimonies
sirvan a ustedes
help you
para votar un
to be
sí
able to vote yes
a este bill.
to this bill.
Por favor,
Please.
como madre,
As a mother,
como líder de la comunidad
as a
latina,
community leader for the Latin community,
como ser humano,
as a human being,
se los pido.
I beg you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Alex Palacios, please, joining us online.
Hello, and good evening to you all. Thank you, Chair Hornstein, for allowing me to speak.
Can you state your name also just for the record and then proceed?
Okay. And my name is Alex Palacios. I use they, them pronouns. I am a former chair of Stonewall DFL. I work for a nonprofit in St. Paul that provides services to the Latina community. Currently, I also serve as chair to the Phillips West Neighborhood Organization, and I'm a former candidate for the Minneapolis City Council. But tonight, I'm here to represent myself as a proud immigrant myself, a Honduran immigrant, moved here in '96, and I want to rise in support of this legislation. There are certain things in my life that I have fought for time and time again. One of those is preserving public safety, and that's what this legislation does. It gives a marker for and a parameter for what happens with interactions with law enforcement. And of course, if the correct data privacy laws are in place, then we also protect those folks who would benefit most from this legislation without putting them at risk, right? This is also a public health issue. We've heard story after story about emergency responses within families and how heartbreaking those can be, because we just don't know how they would end up, right? People have been forced to drive without a driver's license when they could easily be law-abiding citizens, provided that you support this legislation and also be able to respond to concerns around health and wellness. This legislation would also serve to reduce the effects of social stigma, which so many of the folks that would greatly benefit from this legislation passing already face. It's sometimes can seem insurmountable how this social stigma affects these communities. And social stigma, unfortunately, also has physical consequences, right? Anything from blood pressure to other health conditions that can develop because of stress, because of feeling unsafe and not being able to navigate the world safely. But let's also talk about economic empowerment. This legislation also affects economic empowerment by protecting families and protecting workers in a myriad industries, right? We are also protecting and enhancing our economic engine here in the state of Minnesota. Last, certainly not least, but most important, I believe that we live in a state that prioritizes multi-generational human dignity and respect for all of its residents. The passing of this legislation would be proof of that. So I strongly urge everyone in a position of authority here to support the passing of this legislation. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Muy buenas noches.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we have Aaron Morales, followed by Steve Kramer. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good evening. My name is Aaron. I am a member of MIRAC, the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee. I would like to share a few memories with you that have impacted my life. Being the son of immigrants, my parents were fortunate enough to be able to get their driver's license when I was 8 years old. Because of this, while growing up, I always had to go with my parents to the DMV to translate for them. As I am an advocate for my parents, I had to grow up very quickly and be able to understand state and government laws at a very young age. Looking back, I realized that that is not a normal upbringing. Another moment I will always remember is the happy tears of my mother when she passed her driving test. And she no longer had to be stuck at home while my father was at work. She was able to take us to school events, get medical care, and offer rides to other family members without having to worry about not having a license. Lastly, as a citizen, I am fortunate enough to have my driver's license. As the years have passed by, we have had continuous school threats. I am a brother to a middle schooler, where I am relieved that she can rely on me to pull her out of school when there is a gun or bomb threat. Imagine a 14-year-old in a life or death situation where their mother or father can't rescue them, or vice versa, where you are not able to pick up your child in that life or death situation. That is a constant risk you are putting children in, and that should be concerning enough to move quickly and pass this clean bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, we're all. Several more, and then, again, at or around 8 o'clock, we'll begin our discussion of the amendments. So I want everyone to be conscious of that with your testimony, please. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Steve Kramer, and it's really a privilege. Good evening to everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to say just a very few words. There's a Pew Research report that's dated 2017 that undocumented immigrant adults had lived in the United States for a median of 15 years. Undocumented immigrant adults had lived in the United States for a median of 15 years, and two-thirds of undocumented immigrants had lived in the United States for more than 10 years as of 2017. Sadly, there's been no update to this report that I can find, but the numbers are only much higher after 6 years. So these individuals have established deep roots in the United States. And approximately 80,000 have deep roots right here in our own Minnesota communities. They have jobs, they have homes, they attend places of worship with us, their kids go to school with us, they shop where we shop. They are our brothers and our sisters in faith. I strongly believe, and I've been believing this for the last 20 years now, they should have the right to drive to work, drive their kids to school events, drive to their faith communities, and go shop at a traffic stop and being detained and being deported and then returning to a country that most often, sadly, they no longer know because they've spent, in many cases, more than half of their life here. And so they're facing deportation. And what does that mean? That means potential separation from their spouse and kids, potentially forever. So I am a person of faith, and I look at each one of us, each one of you, as a person created in the image and likeness of God, our Creator. Each one of us, I feel, and my faith tells me that a family is a sacred unit, a sacred unit. So by not having a driver's license for all policy here in Minnesota, we enable the breakup of these sacred family units. And I'll repeat that again. By not having a driver's license for all policy here in Minnesota, we enable the breakup of these sacred family units. So please, after so many years, give people the opportunity to receive a driver's license again as they could until 2003, 20 years ago. Thank you very, very much, and it's really an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kramer. We have Raquel C.D. Wagner. And after that, Soli Cabellos and Gracia Nama. And then we are complete, we will have completed the public testimony at that point. Welcome to the committee.
Thank
Please
you.
state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Raquel Seide Wagner. Good evening, Chair Hornstein and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to testify before you today. I am here on behalf of the organization Our Streets Minneapolis to offer our full-throated support of House File 4 driver's licenses for all. Our Streets Minneapolis is a transportation and infrastructure advocacy organization that seeks to repair racial, economic, and environmental harms caused by past policy decisions and infrastructure projects. We envision communities with transportation systems designed to prioritize public health and climate, racial, and economic justice for all of our neighbors. We believe everyone has the right to move around their community freely and safely. As part of all of our campaigns, we have outlined community benchmarks and policies that advance that vision. These benchmarks include supporting the expansion of access to driver's licenses and state IDs for all Minnesotans. Access to these critical documents creates opportunities for immigrant communities otherwise excluded from much of our economic system to access and build capital for themselves and their families. Not having an ID impacts their ability to find suitable housing, employment, or the necessary means to start the small businesses that make our neighborhoods vibrant. This legislation would help to ensure that traditionally marginalized people are given a chance to create generational wealth. This opportunity will vastly improve the quality of their lives and our neighborhoods, benefiting everyone. In addition, if passed, we know this legislation would improve safety on our streets. Licenses for All legislation has consistently lowered the rates of hit-and-run crashes and uninsured drivers in the states where it was implemented. When our undocumented neighbors are forced to live without a license, this creates an understandably heightened fear of interacting with law enforcement, increasing the likelihood of safety concerns such as hit-and-runs. Chair and committee members, thank you again for allowing me to testify this evening. Thank you to the authors of this legislation for supporting this crucial issue and the many advocacy organizations that have been working tirelessly for many, many years on making licenses for all a reality. On behalf of Our Streets Minneapolis, we ask all members to support this bill so we can move quickly to begin to repair the deep harms created in its absence. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Soli. And then Gracia Nama. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
All right. Good evening. My name is Soli Ceballos. I'm 17 years old and I am a junior attending St. Louis Park High School. I'm here talking to all of you today because I strongly believe immigrants should be allowed to get their license. Before the bill against this passed, life for me and my family was easier than it is now with all the transportation issues and roadblocks. When driver's licenses were taken away, it was harder for me and my family to commute. Doctor's appointments were missed, therapy has been difficult to maintain since getting rides there were hard to find, and getting visitations with my mother were just as difficult. The only transportation me and my family have is the Metro Transit buses and walking. We've had to wait countless hours in 100-degree weather to -20-degree weather. If me or my siblings missed the bus to school, we would end up having to stay home due to having no other way there. Getting my parents to agree to after-school curriculars was very hard due to them not knowing how I would get home. This has caused a lot of stress for our entire family. This has made such a big impact in my life, and I know that many others have to go through this as well. This is why I believe not only my parents, but the community of immigrants deserve a chance. Immigrants shouldn't have a smaller chance and harder chance at getting something that everyone deserves. Why make things harder when we can come together instead? I only hope that my time speaking and helping others understand is worth it. I ask you to vote for HR 4 today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our final speaker is Gracia. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all.
Yo estoy aquí porque,
I'm here because,
primeramente, mi nombre es
First of all,
Graciela Lema.
Graciela Lema,
Vivo en Minneapolis
I live in Minneapolis
desde el año de 1995
since 1995
hasta este año en curso.
up to now.
Gracias a Dios yo tenía licencia.
Thank God I had a driver's license.
En 1995
In
podíamos obtener licencias
we were able to have driver's
sin
license
importar un estatus de inmigración.
without needed to be immigration status.
Pero hace 2 semanas
2 weeks ago,
fui a renovar mi
I went to
licencia de
renew my driver's
conducir
license
y no pude obtenerla.
and I wasn't able to.
Mi familia y yo estamos
My
sufriendo
family
mucho
and I
por
were
ese
suffering a
motivo.
lot because of that.
Yo no me sentiré con esa confianza de
I
manejar
would not be able to trust without having the driver's license to drive,
por temor a ser detenida.
for the fear to be stopped
Por
or
favor,
detained.
señores legisladores,
Please,
ayúdenos.
legislators, help us.
Porque con una licencia de conducir,
With the driver's license,
todos podemos llevar a nuestros hijos
we
a la
all will
escuela
be able to take our children to school
y a cada una de sus
and
actividades
to
sin
all their
miedo.
activities without having fear.
Mi licencia se expira en este
My
fin de
driver's
mes.
license expires at the end of this month.
Y yo tengo mucho
And
miedo a manejar sin
I'm
una
very
licencia,
fearful of driving
Por-
without a license.
porque desde que llegué a este estado he
Because
tenido
since I
licencia,
have been in this state, I had a driver's license.
pero a partir de este fin de mes no voy a tenerlo.
But from the end of the month, of this month, I won't be able to have it anymore.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, you're ready to transition here. Before we do that, though, I do want to thank the members of the public who have testified today. It takes courage to come before any committee of the legislature. Your stories were moving and powerful and very much appreciated. And I really, again, want to thank everybody from all over the state, people who came here, people who testified online. So we have 3 things left tonight, members, on our agenda. The first is to hear some amendments to the bill. It's traditional that a bill is presented, but then any member of the committee can bring their ideas forward in the form of an amendment. They've been posted online since yesterday morning. And so we'll hear those amendments and then debate them and vote on them. And then the committee will discuss the bill. Anyone on the committee that wants to make a statement or ask the authors questions or generally put their views out there, we'll have opportunity for that, and then we will vote tonight on this bill. So with that, we have amendments before us, and I think we'll just take them in order of, we'll do the, actually, Representative Petersburg, we'll do the, we'll amend the author's amendment first, if that's okay?
Sure.
All right. So, and I'll express some appreciation for my friend Representative Petersburg for raising some issues about the fiscal note. And as it was examined more closely, we realized that while this bill can be funded, the particular funding source, there's a preferable one that we should be using, and that is from the, we have originally in the driver services account, but it's better to do it in the vehicle services account. And so that will be my author's amendment. But first, before we do that, I will need to move to reconsider the first version of this amendment, the A8 that we passed this morning. So the first motion is to reconsider. Is there a discussion of this? Let's do that first. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to House Fiscal staff and the individuals who are looking at this note in order to make sure that we do the right thing, especially with regards to how we're going to be utilizing taxpayer funds. When you look at the original source of funding and the fact that they would have had $250,000 and needed $1.5 million, we essentially had decided to find a fund balance that where no money in it. So I really greatly appreciate the fact that we were able to figure this out, because whereas this bill has taken 19 years to come to fruition here today, and maybe that is way too long, we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and taking the time and investing the necessary time to do this the right way, because the people of Minnesota, it needs to happen the right way. When we're just willy-nilly throwing our legislation around, that's when we have problems that we have to readdress later on. Our job here as legislators is to make a good bill that will stand on the test of time. And, 19 years is a really long time to be talking about a bill, but I appreciate the time that was spent getting this done right.
Thank you very much for your comments, Representative Olson. Okay, with that, the motion before, the author, does the author have any thoughts?
An amendment only a transportation committee member could love or understand, but I appreciate the work that went into figuring this out this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so with that, I move that we reconsider the A8 amendment, and all those in favor of the motion for reconsideration, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion prevails. So now we have the new A8 amendments before us. I'm sorry, it's now A12. The new A8 is the A12. And so the A8 is withdrawn. And the A12 is before us. Maybe we could have.
I'm not sure I have the A12.
Okay, did we? I thought we have it.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everyone on the committee has the A12. The timestamp is 3:39 p.m. That's the document that we are looking at right now. Basically, okay, it should be in packets. I want to, again, before we do anything more, make sure every committee member has it. The amendment marked H0004 A12. Okay, great. Mr. Lee, quick explanation. It's a short amendment, but I think it's always good to have our House Fiscal staff walk us through.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew Lee from House Fiscal. So the A8 amendment had spend direct appropriation out of the driver services account. The A12 amendment has direct appropriation out of the vehicle services account. So you can see that on line 1.3 and 1.4. The vehicle services account after this appropriation would have a balance of about 8.2 million at the end of fiscal 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Are there any questions of our staff? Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is following a different procedure than I thought, and maybe somebody else can direct that. We recalled 8, but this is an amending 8. So therefore, do we not have to vote down 8 and replace it with this one?
I
don't know. I'm just asking.
My understanding is that we were moving to reconsider this issue. I withdrew the A8, but I guess I'll defer to staff on that in terms of if we're following the custom and usage of House and replacing an amendment that was already approved.
Mr. Chair, Representative Petersburg, so there was a vote to reconsider the A8, and then as I followed it, the chair had withdrawn that amendment. So it's no longer a part of the bill and is not under consideration. And he didn't quite state it, but I take it that the chair was then moving the A12 as
Okay, I see.
a
Okay.
subsequent step.
That makes sense.
And I'll formally move the A12. Thank you, Mr. Burris. Thank you for the question, Representative Petersburg. So the A12 is before us. Our staff explained the bill. Is there discussion? Representative Petersburg.
Just a brief comment that, we started with issues with printing this morning and so forth, and I don't know if that has anything to do with a lot of things, but it does indicate that sometimes through our desire to move things quickly, things can fall through, and this is just an indication where we didn't quite finish our due diligence in that at this point. So I would just ask us to just give us some time to go through.
The staff followed the process and had all the information for duplication last night that we usually do, but there was an issue that took place this morning. But we did have all the documents before the members in time. So we addressed that, and I think that with regard to this, we did have a question that needed to be addressed during the break, and we did that, and as Representative Olson said, we were able to correct it. So
thank you.
And we certainly noticed this hearing a couple weeks in advance, so because we knew that there would be a lot of interest in it. With that, members, I would like to once again move the A12, and we'll take a vote on it. All those in favor of the A12 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed, the motion prevails. Okay, so now we have several amendments before us. I think we'll just take them in order of the numbers. Is that
That's fine.
appropriate then for you? So we have the H004A2 amendment. Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the A2 amendment. The A2 amendment requires it to say not voting on the license. Now, I hope you understand that I have supported this bill in the past. I'm not just here to muck up your bill. However, I think this bill will make our roads safer, undoubtedly. The only issue I see is that, on the Secretary of State's website, you can present a photo ID, which this would be, with a utility bill or something like that, and register to vote. And that is concerning. IDs are state documents. So this amendment says we will put not voting on the ID, and it details in great detail putting on the front of the license and whatnot. I'm happy to work with you in any way. You can put it on the back, you can put it whatever font size you like. It's your bill. But I hope you understand this is in good faith, because that's really the only issue I see. And one thing I do want to say is, if you're willing to consider this, and maybe not right now, but before the bill becomes law, I will personally help you get it through the Senate. Because I think you might, I don't know for sure, but you might need some help there from our side of the aisle. And I've spoke with a lot of members on this because people know I'm open to this idea as I've voted for it in the past. I genuinely, and I mean this, will work with you to help get votes in the Senate to make sure this gets through. But without this, it's going to be a very heavy lift. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from. This is not trying to muck up your parade, but I think this does make it better. So that is my amendment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative. We're going to hear from Representative Petersburg, if there's anyone else that wants to weigh in, and then I will ask the author for her perspective and advice. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like a roll call on this.
Roll call being requested. There will be a roll call.
Thank you for that. First of all, I'd like to just comment to all the testifiers and to those that are still here in the gallery, just to say, for those of you that are here as undocumented, I can't imagine what kind of decisions you had made and what you had to go through in order to come to this country, knowing that the benefit of coming here was worth the risk and it was worth all the things that you have to go through, and even today on a continued basis. And even understanding that with that coming here, you know that there was a risk of deportation and so forth. And so every day you kind of live underneath that guise, and I certainly appreciate that. Unfortunately, this body doesn't have any way of changing that undocumented status. That is something that the federal government needs to do. It hasn't done, and we're stuck with the fallouts of that. But we're also here, all of us around this table took an oath last week to support the Constitution of the United States and Minnesota for the rights that are there. One of the good things about that, of course, is that driving isn't a right as much as we think it is. It's a privilege, and it's a privilege that we take away from Minnesota residents, from U.S. residents, for various reasons. And so that gives us an opportunity to do that. Throughout the testimony, and I took quite a few notes in regards to this, and people want to follow the law. They want driving privileges, want to be able to find workers to fill jobs. All of those things talk about having the driving privilege. And that's to me, I think, one of the things that if this bill only dealt with driving privileges, I think it would be a lot different perception and a lot different support for it. Unfortunately, this bill, the way it stands right now, gives the same Class D license in all of its aspects and all of its rights to even those that are undocumented. And that's a challenge because the Secretary of State's website says that all you need for an election day for voting, to register that day and vote, is just a valid Minnesota driver's license, learner's permit, or ID, or a receipt of any of these. That to me, I think, is a challenge. And I think because we already have, and I think we heard it earlier today, the perception is oftentimes more true than the reality. And we need to continue to figure out ways in which we improve the perception of voter integrity, and I don't think this does it. I think it's a concern. Even the I-9 form that the federal government requires of all employees to provide to employers says you can use a driver's license for one of those to establish identity, but you need to also provide documents that establish authority to be employed. That's a different thing that we need to deal with. But here we are taking a bill that's going to allow a driver's license to look exactly like any other, that makes no distinction about whether or not it's for voting. We had, I think, a comment that we are all voting and we will vote you out, I think was the comment that was made, indicating that is there some voting integrity issues there? I don't know. I take everybody's word that they're not going to use it for that, but if they're not, then why not put it on the license that it is not for voting? It seems to me it's one of those safeguards that's appropriate. It happens to be one of the things that was negotiated over the last two terms and got into the bill. And so I think it's worthy for us to consider it, and I would certainly ask for your support on this particular amendment.
Thank you,
Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Petersburg. I don't see any other committee members on the list, so if either of the authors would like to respond, either or both, Chair Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just do want to say I take your this amendment in the spirit that it's offered. I think, Representative West, I appreciate your partnership on this and your support in the past. And I know that was like in good faith. And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation about voting, because I think that there's a lot of, this is sort of one of the main kind of objections to it. And a few of these amendments that are coming fall in kind of the same vein, I think. So I'm going to talk a little bit more on this amendment and maybe more briefly on the next ones where I feel like the issues at stake are pretty similar. So First of all, I want to say that nothing in this bill changes anything about how people vote today, about our voting system, about what you have to do in order to register to vote, or what you have to do the day of voting, or when you vote early. This is a driver's license. It's not a voter's license. It's not a benefits license. It's for driving. And so what you have to do to prove that you know, are kind of what you have to demonstrate to be eligible to drive is to pass written and behind the wheel tests. We don't have voter ID laws in our state. And, you know, for decades before the rule change in 2003, we had these same voter registration policies in place, and we just didn't see I spoke to the Secretary of State's office. I mean, there are very rare cases of anybody, you know, registering when they're not eligible. They pretty much always get caught. It's almost always unintentional to the extent that it happens. When it's not just that you go to, when you register, same day you guys have the publication from the Secretary of State in front of you. It's not just that you go and you bring an identification card and a utility bill, or, you know, that you have to identify, or you have to establish your identity and your place of residence. There's a third and very important component of kind of like what you have to do in order to register, and that's the attestation that we all sign with our, you know, I think now they print it out on a little receipt. In the past, it kind of used to be in that book. But what that oath says, and you swear to an oath under felony of perjury, or basically, like, it's a felony to falsely attest or falsely take that oath. The three parts of the oath is it says that you're a citizen, that you're of legal age to vote, so you're 18 or over, and that you live where you say you live. Again, it's a felony to sign that oath. There are very stiff penalties associated with offering a false attestation in an attempt to vote when you're ineligible. There are lifelong, permanent immigration consequences if you are found to falsely attest that you're a citizen of the United States and you're not. So, you know, it carries these really hefty consequences for people. And, you know, as I said, consequently, it isn't an issue in the 18 states where this is the law. It was not an issue in Minnesota prior to 2003 for the decades in which, you know, we had people of all immigration statuses who had access to driving privileges. Let's see, I had one more thing I wanted to say. Oh, that right now, like, if you are a permanent resident, if you're a green card holder, you can go, you have access to driver's licenses in Minnesota. They look just like every other driver's license. If you're a green card holder, you are not eligible to vote in the United States, but you have to sign that attestation if you want to vote. So you have to take the oath that you're a citizen, that you're 18, that you live where you live. And, you know, we have people with temporary protected status who have access to driver's license, people with green cards who have access to driver's license. And again, it's just in all these cases, we really don't see this as an issue. And so, you know, I want to say broadly that, you know, we're not going to give people a second-class driver's license. We're not going to, we want people to have.
Members of the audience, we need to get through our testimony here, please.
So, and, you know, so we're not going to, I mean, I think like we heard from so many of our testifiers about their own personal experiences of that, like that fear that they had interacting with law enforcement. And if you have a license that's oriented differently, that's marked differently, that automatically when you interact with any authority, like tells people something about you, you know, there are major civil liberties concerns with that. And I know that we share that as an interest, Representative West. And, you know, we want people to have access to driving privileges, and we believe that a license regardless of immigration status, shouldn't reveal more personal information about somebody than is necessary to access those privileges. And so I would ask members of the committee to vote no on this amendment.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
Representative
Mr.
Perez.
Chair, members of the committee, I just want to echo what my colleague has mentioned as well as, and the testimony of everyone here is to not be driving illegally. So if there's no rights to be saying, we want to vote illegally. No, it's the purpose of, we don't want to commit a crime and we want safety. So to discriminate against that is not what the intentions of this bill is. The intentions of this bill is to provide safety for our immigrant community, to have that privilege that we have as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. So the West A2 amendment is before us, and we will ask for any other discussion, and we'll give the last word to the author, Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear, well, the reason I said it doesn't need to be exactly like the amendment is because I understood your concerns about the second-class citizens. You don't want to get clear. And then it's, like you said, it's unintentional when people illegally register to vote on frequent cases, as you mentioned. So it's not, and that can happen a lot when English is your second language, which I only speak one language, and I know like half the people here speak two. So that is, to try and address your concerns, that's why I wanted to make sure, I think that would be acceptable, is making it not obvious because you don't want it to be broadcasted to everyone. And, you know, we're both, you know, I'm very libertarian leaning Republican, so we share those civil liberty concerns. My hope is to have a solid bipartisan support of this bill, and this would be the key to that. And one of the reasons I think that's important is because, like you mentioned, this change in 2003. And, you know, Minnesota has been a place where power changes hands, not as frequently as we thought. I'm sure you laughed at a lot of our speeches last year. Yeah, you plead the fifth, of course. But this would make it more bipartisan, like your tax conformity bill, which I appreciated the spirit in which you understood our concerns, and we were able to pass that bill unanimously. I don't think this would make this bill pass unanimously, but I think it does protect it from future reversal. And it would also, as I mentioned earlier, help you get it through the Senate. If you have trouble, you can't lose one person over there. So I appreciate that you understand this is the spirit in which this is offered, and I would request that members vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I see no further discussion. The author has recommended a no vote on the amendment, and the clerk will take the roll.
Thank you. Chair Hornstein?
No.
Vice Chair Tapke?
No.
Lead Petersburg?
Yes.
Representative Brand?
No.
Representative Elkins?
No.
Representative Cagle?
No.
Representative Kraft?
No.
Representative Nelson?
No.
Representative Norris?
No.
Representative Sensor-Mura?
No.
Representative Fogelman?
Yes.
Representative Hudella?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Olson?
Yes.
Representative West?
Yes.
We will await the tally.
We have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
Prevail. That's the A2. Next up is the A3. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is very similar, and the next ones, four of them are very similar to what has been negotiated in previous ones. And I want to say a couple of things. I found 16 states that had this group. I think you had 18, I must have missed a couple. Of that, 8 of those 16 did have various changes to the driver's license making it different. And currently in Minnesota, we already have at least 3 different styles of driver's licenses. So this is not unusual for us to have different types of driver's licenses. If we were concerned about the issue in regards to law enforcement, obviously we could have made some changes in which we also then mandate or require that law enforcement may not use this driver's license for purposes of identifying illegal undocumented or even talking to INS about it. We could have done it that way instead. But this one here says that it's for driving privileges only, which is basically what I've heard has been the request, and then it was marked for not for voting, and so it's very similar. And again, I would recommend a yes vote because I think it helps get to what is needed, which is the driving privileges, and it makes the distinction about whether or not it's for voting or not.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. Chair Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, as I said, I think this is pretty similar to the last one, and I kind of laid out my thinking about recommending a no vote on, you know, marking this license not for voting when doesn't reflect how our voting system operates in Minnesota. And, you know, and just wanting people to have access to a license that looks like other licenses. And so I would recommend a no vote on this also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gomez. Is there any further discussion of the A3 amendment? I believe this is a voice vote here. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed?
No.
The motion does not prevail. Next is the A4 amendment. Is anyone claiming the A4?
That's mine.
Okay, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A4 amendment, that's my amendment, as are the next 2. These all follow the exact same concept of what we've been discussing. And so this is just my second to bring forward some thoughts to what you've discussed, but also to tell you where, you know, I am and a lot of my colleagues are at. First of all, this was heard last session in the Transportation Committee, which I served on. And I'm not exactly sure the unit of measurement when you're on the fence of what you measure it in. Was it inches or is it minutes? I'm not sure what the unit of measurement is, but I was inches away from voting for this bill last session. The economic ideas behind it, having insurance, the public safety, all these arguments are very, very important arguments that can be made. And I want to be able to provide that to the individuals who live in this state, okay? But one of the major concerns that I have, and I understand the arguments that you've made, but 2 years ago, we had these amendments in the bill, and they were very, very good, and they left me feeling, you know, this is okay, all right? I did vote against it, but that, like I said, it was an inch, okay? If we can get some form of fraudulently in any way, that inch is right there, and I'd be happy to support this bill. Now, what we're talking about, these are more concerns that I have based off of what you've brought up here is, we have a bill that has been dropped this session that talks about automatic voter registration, all right? And that is a really good concept that I utilized when I changed my license. I got a new license. There's a box that I could check. It says you can automatically be registered to vote in your home district. It was excellent, and I loved having that ability. But how, if I go, you know, if an undocumented individual goes and gets their license, which they probably should have the ability to do, to get to work, to get to church, to get to school, to have insurance, to be a productive member of society, they probably should have these rights. But being a citizen of the United States is a very, very important thing that we do, which is called voting. And this needs to be protected. If there's a significant portion of this population that is marginalized based on the fact that they can't drive, we cannot marginalize another section by saying, we don't believe, you know, maybe they're questioning whether or not our elections are safe. And that is a valid concern that people have. And if one can just disincentivize or say this is not a concern, your concerns are invalid, then another individual can look at your concerns and say your concerns are invalid. So the argument here is that everyone's concerns are valid. How do we answer the question of automatic voter registration? How will this deal with mail-in ballots? How do those happen? If I can have assurances on how this will work with regards to the new election laws that we're proposing here in this House, then I can support a bill like this. I have considerable amounts of license markings on mine. First of all, it says not for federal identification. It's because I went to the provided the correct amount of documents, and it was very difficult and decided, well, I have a passport and I have a military ID. Those will be sufficient to get me on planes. So I don't have the enhanced identification. But on the other side, I have a restriction. It says corrective lenses. Now you could probably, none of you probably know that I have corrective lenses, but my license says that. And there have been times in history, I'm a history teacher, so I know my history. I actually just got a master's in December. I got my master's awarded me for history. But there have been individuals who have been marginalized based off of their inability to see. And if that is if we can write corrective lenses on here, I think we can write not for voting purposes or for driving purposes only. I do not think that there will be any legal issues with doing this. And I think that we'll have both sections of our society, those who need to get to work, those who need their insurance, those who need to be able to perform their life in the way that America is designed to do, right? With a name like Bjorn Olsen, you sure are not a native to this country, right? Your people did not come from here, okay? I understand the argument of immigrants. It's a good one. You should want to come here. But we need to know that our elections are safe, and there's a significant portion of our population that question that, whether right or wrong, they do. And this here, by not having these assurances, it will only fuel that problem. So if we have an answer to this, I have no problem with these. I'll get rid of my amendments and we can deal with this at another time because it's getting late. I need an assurance to this, and I would love to support this.
Chair Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Olson, for this amendment. So I guess a few things. I'm not an elections expert. I don't really know the AVR bill in and out. What I do know is that it's the automatic voter registration bill would automatically register people who are eligible to vote. And again, as I mentioned, there are people in Minnesota right now who are not eligible to vote, who have IDs, who have driver's licenses. And so we're not setting up a system that's going to register people to vote who are not eligible. I do, I kind of just would go back to the reality that this is, the sort of arguments don't really reflect what is the underlying truth in our election system, which is that it's not just an ID that lets you vote. It's the oath, it's the attestation, it's the criminal penalties that go along with that. The AVR bill would only apply to people who show proof of citizenship, is my understanding. I don't think that it's, I guess I would ask, like, in terms of the markings that are on your ID and the corrective lenses thing, people get separated from their children because of their immigration status. We heard those stories today. And so, I just don't, that's a false equivalency, in my opinion. To kind of equate a marking that might reveal something that has that kind of consequence for somebody in their life, with a marking that indicates that you need corrective lenses to drive. So I would urge a no vote on this amendment also.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. Oh, we'll give you the last word. Do you want to respond now to that?
I would like to, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I believe in your bill, Chair Gomez, I believe it states that no matter what is written on the license, it cannot be used against you with public safety issues, the police, immigration can't do anything with regard to whatever your license looks like. It looked like that was in your bill. So with that being said, you have just nullified the argument that states putting this on here would be inappropriate because you yourself said you cannot use this in any form of a negative way with regard to immigration or police officers or anything like that. So they should not be scared about whatever's written on here, even if it's vertical, because your law that you're proposing to create would negate any legal action to be taken from them with regard to it.
I'll have Chair Gomez respond, then we'll get to Representative Petersburg's comment.
I wish that we lived in a world where it was true that all of the protections that are in the letter of the law were applied equally to people in our world, but that's not where we live, unfortunately. So absolutely, we did our best, and we're doing our best to put ironclad data protections in this bill so that people's personal identifying information does not get shared with any outside agency, that the possession of this license doesn't provide a pretext for any kind of interaction with other kind of, criminal legal system or immigration systems. But again, that's not the world that we live in. People with, who have, people interact with authorities all the time. And, I guess I live in Minneapolis, as you may know. The Minnesota Human Rights Department last year issued a report about the Minneapolis Police Department and found that there was a pattern in practice of racial discrimination by our largest police department in the state. And if you haven't read that report, I hope that you go and read it. Because, I guess I just want to say, maybe your experience interacting with law enforcement isn't the same as somebody else's based on where you live, based on how you look, based on your background. And so, again, I hope that our data practices and privacy measures that are contained in the bill mean that nobody ever faces any negative consequences, but I don't think it's true. I mean, I think that we have to, a big thing about this bill in general to me, is and I appreciate you all kind of grappling with it, is that on this issue, I think for so long, we have refused to reckon with reality, right? And so this is an effort to say, people are driving, they're in our communities, we have to just deal with reality. Another reality is that racial discrimination by law enforcement exists in our country, in our state, very profoundly in my city, the largest city in the state of Minnesota. And so, I guess I don't think we live in that world, but thank you.
And also,
Sir, we don't have, public testimony is ended. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. So, one of the things.
Jovita.
So I'm a living.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make some remarks following
Okay.
what Representative Olson had to say.
Okay. Proceed, and then we will have
Thank you.
Representative Petersburg. Thank you.
Thank you. I too have an alert outside of correctional lenses on my ID, on my license. It's a medical alert because I'm type 1 diabetic. But when I get pulled over, still with citizenship, there is a fear in our communities because we have seen the discrimination in a failed public safety here in our state. When your friends are killed on camera by the people who are supposed to protect our communities, But I have a privilege as a citizen that I can escape that fear and not be taken away to the law for not being by having an ID. Or the reality is that I can get to my daughter. These folks are telling you stories that are true facts of fearing because they've felt that. They've felt their parents being detained. They have felt the separations of not seeing family members or not being allowed to have their family members return. So I just want to take consideration of that we have these markers, but these markers allow us to be able to go ahead and be the citizens that we are and to help out the communities that don't have that same privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Perez-Vega. Representative Petersburg,
Yeah,
last word.
just quick couple of comments. One is that I hope people realize that a driver's license or not doesn't take away the risk of deportation. That can occur if what you say is true about profiling, that can occur because a lot of the profiling and stuff went on in Minneapolis had nothing to do with their driver's license, okay? So that's not really legitimate for this particular discussion, but it does have some bearing, I guess. The concern that we have in regards to the automatic driver's license registration is that I believe, if I read the bill correctly, the administrator the agency that administers this driver's license cannot share that legal status with any other agency, including the Secretary of State, which means the Secretary of State will not have any information to know whether or not this is a provisional driver's license for those that do not have legal status to vote or not. That's a concern, I think. And so that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this. I don't know if we can resolve that later down the road or not, but I think it's a legitimate concern if we proceed with the automatic registrations. That's my only comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Representative Wilson, did you want to say?
Nope, we can vote. I got two more.
Okay. All right, we have the A4 before us. The authors recommended a no vote. This is a voice vote, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The motion does not prevail. Okay, we now have the A5. I think that's yours again, Representative Wilson?
Yes, it is, Chair Hornstein. Thank you so much. So just wanted to really quickly reiterate one last thing here, and then I'm going to withdraw this amendment. So Chair Gomez, if we can figure out some way of what we're talking about here, I think you can understand that these are valid arguments that we're trying to make. And whether someone from the crowd is going to yell that they can't vote or not, these are concerns that my constituents have. These are concerns that every citizen should have, because this is a right of citizens to vote. I so would love to have an opportunity where our immigrants, whether documented or undocumented, I know that there's issues with individuals getting their licenses who are here legally. I understand that's an issue. I would love for them to go to work, to be able to go to church, to be able to go to school, to be able to live productive lives in this society. But I need to know that this is a safe way of doing so for our elections, okay? So what I'm asking you, if you would like this to be a bipartisan issue, I need those assurances. And until I can get those, I have to be a no vote on this bill. But for the sake of time, and since most of these arguments have already been made, I would like to withdraw this amendment and then the one after that as well, my other two amendments.
Just to be clear, that would, you're withdrawing the A5 and the A6.
They do exactly, they do very much similar things to what we've been arguing about, so,
Okay.
thank you. Can I get those assurances, or can you at least look into that, please, for me, Chair?
Chair Gomez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Olson. And I do know that you're expressing genuine concerns, and I don't think you're trying to muck up the bill or or maybe you are. He wasn't. I don't know. Yeah. So here's what I'll say about the bill is that when we made the decision to accept some of these measures that are reflected in these amendments in 2019, that was a decision that was made with the community. It was made after discussions. I know that, Representative Koznick has had a lot of discussions with a lot of people in the community. And so I can just tell you that it's not my decision. This is, something that has been held by people who are not sitting at these tables, by people who are sitting out in the audience for the last 14 years. And so what I can tell you is that I'm happy to try to facilitate a conversation. between some of your members and some members of the coalition that have been working on this for all these years. But, you know, that, the decision that happened that when Representative Winkler was the author of this bill it wasn't his alone. It was a decision that he and the community members who've been, you know, been really holding this work made together based on the circumstances that existed at that time. So that I'm happy to reach out and to connect with you and to connect you. I'm sure there are people in the room who'd be open to having that conversation. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hornstein. Thank you, Chair Gomez, for that, connecting me with those conversations. And as long as, you know, like I said, if we can be assured that this will work in coalition with your election bill that's also in the House, if I'm convinced that there's no messing around, I see no reason why we shouldn't do this.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, I
Yes.
just want to assure that, you know, folks are trying to follow the law and not break it. And by an undocumented person going to vote would mean that they would be facing a large penalty, a felony, way larger than driving without a license. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so members, we have one more amendment before us. Thank you, Representative Wilson. Those amendments are withdrawn. And do we have a claimant for the A7, Representative Petersburg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to take this in a slightly different vein here, and first I'd like to roll call on this one.
Okay, roll call having been requested, we will have a roll call.
So basically, what this amendment says is that I agree, we need to maintain the safety on the roads, and we need to understand that we can have confidence in people's ability to drive. One of the things that we've heard from law enforcement in regards to driver's license is that they care about three things. One is that they can be insured. Two, that they can read the signs and understand what they say. And three is that they have the ability and skill to be able to drive. And I think we all agree with that, right? I think that's what we want from all of our licenses. And because we know that the individuals are going to have to take the driver's test and written test as well, we wonder, and we think, I think at least, et cetera. And so what this amendment does actually is it says that they must get some driver's education, and to make it easy, because not everybody can get to the driver's bureau and so forth, that we allow it also to have online driver's education as well in the bill. So that it allows for people to have the ease of getting that education and driving training, and also then to make it safe. And so with that, I would recommend a yes vote, because I think it makes prudent sense for us to guarantee that safety.
We will hear from the author and then Representative Cagle.
Excellent.
Chair Cagle, I have to.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein, and thank you, Representative Petersburg. And I understand that this kind of involves a larger conversation that's been happening in this committee, so I'm happy that Chair Cagle is going to give me an assist on that one. I didn't learn how to drive till I was 29 years old. And so I'm trying not to take this personally, but I'm just saying, you know, when you're an adult who needs to learn how to drive, it's, you know, we went to I think I got a learner's permit, and I went to a parking lot and I figured out how to parallel park, and then I studied my book and I went and took my test and passed my behind the wheel. And so I guess I don't see a reason that, you know, an adult person that had a different immigration status than me would need to undergo any different process to get their license. Because, you know, to your point, the proof that you know how to operate a motor vehicle, the proof that you know that you understand the rules of the road is in that evaluation and that written and behind the wheel test that you have to take to get a license. So.
Mr. Chair, and I think that was the one thing that I was going to talk about too, is why is it just for the folks who are applying for this driver's license? Why not make it for all people over 18? Because we've heard a lot that, you know, people are waiting until they're 18 to get their driver's license because of that barrier of driver's education and the cost of that. And so I think, you know, if we could, I think it's not right to make sure, to exactly what Chair Gomez was saying is that, you know, if we're gonna apply it to this set of people, why not apply it to everybody?
Representative Petersburg, you're,
Final
give you the
comments?
last word. Oh,
I
well,
don't have a problem with
Representative
it.
We'll have West after you.
Well, I personally don't have a problem with it applying to everybody. Unfortunately, this bill doesn't deal with any of that. So I can only deal with it as it goes, right? Because reality is that driving is a skill. And unfortunately, every time we get behind the wheel, we get behind the wheel of a deadly weapon. Okay, and it kills more people than almost anything else we do directly from what we do. And so I'm very passionate about the fact that we aren't doing a justice to all drivers when we allow them to just haphazardly develop their skills instead of learning it. All of us learn better when we have peers and others giving us direction and so forth. And so this is one of the ways in which we can help. And when we understand that a lot of the testimony that we had today, I don't know if they could speak English, but they didn't appear to be. And there are a lot of rules and other things that have to be done in English, signs have to be read in English, et cetera, that need to be done. And to have that assurance, I think makes sense. But that's my 2 cents worth. I know the bill's gonna pass. I don't expect this one to go, but I think it's important for us to understand that we have an opportunity to help improve the quality of the driver, not just the car. And so that's my 2 cents worth. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, we are kind of deviating from the bill a little bit here, so I'll be very, very brief. One thing I think needs to be considered with online driver's education is the fact that it's much easier to have online materials be bilingual or in as many languages as you dang well please. Whereas having to find a driver's ed instructor who can speak multiple languages is obviously a lot higher bar. So going forward, I hope we can discuss this, and I think that is one of the biggest things for helping all communities learn the rules of the road and drive safely.
Thank you, Representative West. Any further discussion on the A7? We are going to have a roll call on this one. Any further discussion? The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Hornstein?
No.
Vice Chair Tapke?
No.
Lee Petersburg?
Yes.
Representative Brand?
No.
Representative Elkins?
No.
Representative Cagle?
No.
Representative Kraft?
No.
Representative Nelson?
No.
Representative Norris?
No.
Representative Sensor Mura?
No.
Representative Fogelman?
Yes.
Representative Hudella?
Yes.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Olson?
Yes.
Representative West?
Yes.
I have 6 ayes and 9 nays.
There being 6 ayes and 9 nays, the motion does not prevail. So members, that brings us, I believe, to the end of the amendments. And what I'd like to do now is see if there's any committee discussion. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I had asked, if the agency could come up tonight. And so I do have a question for the agency in regards to actually implementation of the driver's license tests and so forth and the ability for them. So if he's here.
Yes, we have driver and vehicle services here. Mr. Zhang. Welcome back to the committee, Mr. Zhang and Representative Petersburg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Zhang. The question that I have is in regards to the ability to actually bring up to speed the number of driver's license examiners and takers and so forth. It looks like from, I think, the fiscal note that there's a possibility of quite a few thousand, something like 25,000 possible applicants for this with the retakes and so forth. And the concern that I've heard that maybe the department has a hard time getting it implemented by October 1st, And so I'm wondering, you know, is there an issue there? Do you think we can accomplish that? Will we have more spots available? Will we have more testing stations available for us to accomplish that?
Mr. Zhang.
Mr. Chair, Rep. Petersburg, thank you for the question. With the resources that were provided in the fiscal note, it definitely will move us in the right direction. We fully recognize that in order to support the entire state of Minnesota, we need adequate resources and availability to serve all. We looked at this proposal on its own merit and identified the resources that we thought we needed to support this effort. Part of our testimony around offering a different or considering a different implementation date will allow us to bring in those resources that we've identified so that we're ready to go and get people tested and get people credentialed.
Representative Petersburg.
So just to be clear, what do you perceive as being the best implementation date for the implementation?
Mr. Zhang.
Mr. Chair, Rep. Petersburg, we offer January 1st as a buffer for us to get positions filled, get processes in place so that we're prepared to take that on the 1st of the calendar year.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. And that may be one of the things that Chair Gomez may want to look at the next stop is to figure out if that implementation is correct. Because we want to do things right the first time and get it done so that it's actually effective and working. So I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. Committee members, do we have further discussion on House File 4 as amended? Okay, yes. Representative Videla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go on the record with a couple of comments. I had the honor this past Saturday to participate in the League of Women Voters forum for the area around my district. We had a couple of state senators, multiple state representatives, one of which was my DFL colleague across the aisle, Representative Ethan Shaw. And Representative Shaw talked at length about how his family immigrated to our country and the hours spent studying and putting in the work, and how proud he was to become a citizen of our great country. Now, I think our country is doing a disservice to all these wonderful people that are in the room with us here today. I think we desperately need reform on the front for immigration. I think we need to make it faster, we need to make it easier, and we need to make it cheaper. But I can't support this bill because I think it takes away and discourages people to put in the work like Ethan Shaw, like Representative Shaw did. And I agree with the other legislators on our side of the table here that I think there are legitimate concerns and a potential opening of a Pandora's box with issues like voter integrity, if nothing else, for the perception of it. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go on the record with those comments.
Thank you for your comments, Representative. Any further discussion? Representative Petersburg.
This would be my last comment, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. You know, I'm also unable to vote for this bill at this time because I really have concerns about the fact that I don't think we have provided enough guardrails on it for abuse. And it's one of those things where everybody in here and everybody around, we all want to be honest with each other and we all want to be truthful, but we can't guarantee the future. And without doing something to protect that, I think it's a concern. It's something that we haven't really addressed. And if we all agree that we're not going to do that, then I don't understand the reason why we can't put it in black and white. And so that's a concern that I have, and it's one of the main reasons why. It's not because I don't think that there should be driving privileges available. I just think that we have not really given true importance to the potential abuses of it. So that's why I stand.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. We have Representative Fogelman and then Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you,
Representative
Mr. Chair, committee members. I just want to say that, you know, we are a great nation and we are a nation of laws. And we have those laws to protect ourselves from each other and from the government. We need to uphold those laws which offer the same protections for everyone. And we shouldn't encourage illegal entry. We shouldn't be giving driver's license to people here without permission. Unfortunately, people here illegally do not have a voice, and we need immigration reform. We are aiding companies to abuse workers by holding their immigration status over their heads and paying them substandard wages and hiring underage workers. By doing this, they are also hurting people who came here legally and are trying to gain employment and a livable wage. We shouldn't be bailing out corporations that are breaking federal and state employment laws. The real issue here is immigration laws. We should be putting pressure on Congress to change those laws. I took an oath when I was elected to support and defend the Constitution. If we don't follow the laws, we will lose our nation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Next up, we have Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to say thank you very much to Chair Gomez, Representative Perez-Vega, and everyone who has been working on this bill for the last 20 years. We've had a lot of just extraordinary, wonderful, hopeful, heartbreaking testimony today from so many people, and we've been hearing this. I personally been hearing this for over a decade. We started working this while I was mayor. I met Amelia when we started working on this because it's a really big issue in my community, to my people. We've got, for those that are watching online, and we've had a watch group in Shakopee watching this bill going all day long, watching it online, and because it's important. It's important to lives. It's important to people. And whether someone is undocumented or documented, we all deserve the opportunity to live full, great lives. And in my opinion, Shakopee is one of the best places to do that. And it is really, really great to have people standing up for their rights of their children. I am a firm believer that this is that immigration is a federal issue, and we at the state can't do anything about that. But what we can do is but we can make a change in the incalculable wrongs that have been done to people for 2 decades now. Families and work and take their kids to school and go, as we heard from, go to the Boundary Waters. I mean, it's really critical, and I appreciate everyone's thoughtful discussion about this today, and respecting everyone in the room and making sure that we are moving forward together. So thank you very much to everyone who's been working so hard on this bill, whether you're in this room, whether you're in Shakopee, whether you're all over the state of Minnesota. So thank you very much, and I'm proud to support it.
Thank you so much, Representative Sensimuro.
Thank you. And I'm going to use a few notes because I felt really moved by the testimony today, and then we got into what I think are important conversations about the minutia of driver's license test and font sizes on the license. And so I want to use some notes to kind of keep me centered on what I think this bill is really about. First of all, thank you, Chair, members of the committee, the authors of this bill, the daughters of the west side of St. Paul and South Minneapolis. But most importantly, the testimonials we heard today from community members who have carried this legislation for way too long. Today we heard from parents, children, teachers, faith leaders, public safety officials, the Department of Vehicle Services, all in support of HF4, driver's license for all. I think most of us could say it's pretty rare in our current political climate to find that kind of disparate groups all in consensus around an issue. And it's because it's not a secret that immigrant communities are essential to Minnesota, and immigrant communities make our state work. They are our friends, they are our family, they are our fellow travelers. They're our neighbors who help shovel our cars when they're stuck in the snow. They're the essential workers who helped keep our state going over the past couple years. And as we heard today, they are the future legislators who will someday and maybe soon take our seats. In South Minneapolis, the district I represent, immigrants are the heart of our community, and they are who kept me and my family and my property safe in the summer of 2020 when our city was burning and our community was in danger. Passing this bill is about making people's lives easier. I hope that in the future our committee has discussions about what a Minnesota can look like that is not dependent on cars. I hope we take action to make that future possible. But right now, we know that driving a car is essential, and a driver's license is a safety net, as we heard here today. So let us vote to allow our neighbors to drive to their jobs, to drive their babies home from the hospital, to take a trip to the Boundary Waters or to the Mall of America, to drop off their kids at college, to drive to the hospital in an emergency. Let's allow our neighbors to experience what I'm sure most of us on this committee remember, the feeling when we first passed our driver's test, or if you're like me, maybe it took you a couple tries, but you got there. Let's allow everyone to engage in kind of the essential part of Minnesota culture, which is meaningless small talk about driving and the weather. Passing this bill is about making our streets safer. We are all safer when drivers are recognized and trained, and our streets are safer when communities are not living in fear. This bill is about recognizing dignity and righting a wrong our state committed 20 years ago. These communities should not have to come here again to share their trauma. They have been met with government silence and inaction, indifference, and re-traumatization. Today, we can say, I recognize you and I see you. Transit is what makes people's lives work. The testimonies today have showed us the failures of our current transportation system. We heard stories about waiting hours for the bus, walking home at night in the cold, worried for their safety, hard economic decisions and economic exploitation based on the lack of transportation. These testimonies make us reckon with reality, as Chair Gomez shared, and they give us a roadmap for our future work on this committee. But today we can start the work of repair. I'm honored to be a small part of this movement by my vote.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Nelson, or Chairman Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there's a lot of reference to 20 years ago. I think Representative or Chair Hornstein and I are the only two members on this committee that were here when this was done 20 years ago. And it wasn't done by passing a law. It was done by Commissioner of Transportation changing a rule and eliminating that. Before that, immigrants could get licenses, whether they were documented or undocumented. And then a couple years later, a law was passed to lock that in, so a future transportation chair couldn't change the rules back. And so we're here today, fighting this for 20 years, to finally put this back where we were before. And 20 years ago, before that rule change, there was not massive voter fraud from people trying to vote illegally. And in the Secretary of State's office, I was the past chair of the State Government Finance and Elections Committee for the last 2 years. When we talk about automatic registration, it's just changing what we currently have from a box saying, I don't want to a box saying, I don't want to, or I want to a box saying, I don't want to. And it goes to the Secretary of State's office, and in their office, they verify this from other sources, whether the person is a citizen or not, or whether they have the right to vote or not. It's not automatically done. They go through the process of verifying those registrations. So that argument is a specious argument if there is one. And so members, I'm proud to vote for this bill, and Representative Gomez, thank you for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Chair Gomez and Representative Perez Vega. You know, coming into this discussion, as I thought about this issue, I realized pretty quickly that it's certainly a public safety issue, an economic impact, a community impact. It just makes sense. What I want to thank the testifiers here tonight for is to really making it more personal and making it clear that beyond that, this is a family issue, it's a quality of life issue, it's a dignity issue, it's a moral issue. And so I am proud to be able to support this, having only joined this body a week ago, but proud to be able to try to right something that, a wrong that happened 20 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll make a couple of comments, and then the very last word will go to our authors. So First of all, again, thank you to the public. Thank you to everybody that's been tuning in from around the state to this very, very important hearing. I want to thank members of the committee for a really good discussion. Of course, I want to echo what Vice Chair Tabke and others have said to our authors and really appreciate your hanging in there with us and your incredible work to get us to where we are now. So thank you, Chair Gomez and Representative Perez Vega. And just, again, to summarize just a few comments that I heard tonight. We heard from public safety officials and others that this is at its core a safety issue. We heard from the faith community that it's a moral issue. We heard really compelling testimony from business leaders and labor leaders that this is a issue of economic justice. And then, of course, we heard from people directly affected, and I, again, want to thank everyone for their courage in speaking out. It's not easy, but you touched this committee, and I think you touched the state and this legislature in profound ways. Representative Sensimura used the word movement, and this is really a movement. I've had the honor of seeing how it's grown over the 20 years. We had a couple of our former colleagues really carried the load for a long time. People might remember Representative Karen Clark and Representative Carlos Mariani and others that were really engaged with so many of you 20 years ago, and now we have so many new people involved, and the youth that came and testified, both personally and online, was so deeply, deeply moving. And so I do want to say, as others have said, that yes, it's a public safety issue. Yes, it's an economic justice issue. Yes, it's a moral issue, but at its core, it's an issue of justice and dignity. And so that's what we are voting on today. That's what we're moving forward. That's what we're advancing today. So again, thank you to the authors. I want to give both of you the last word, and then we will bring this hearing to a close and vote on the bill as amended. So whoever wants to go first, Representative Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I just want to say muchísimas gracias a todos que vinieron de lejos y de nuestras ciudades gemelas, que son parte de sí, como dijo Samantha, representante Mura, del movimiento, y que tienen su orgullo de ser minnesotanos, aunque son, si tienen documentados o no tienen documentados, por ser minnesotanos y por ser parte de nuestra comunidad. I would like to thank our immigrant community for being Minnesotans, for being such a huge part of this great state. I am first generation Latina in Minnesota. I remember when it was just 1% of a Latino population, and now we're close to 8%, and that's modest, but we're growing. And we're citizens. And some of us aren't, but we're all family. We're all different shades of brown, from the darkest to the lightest, whether we're Latinos, whether we're West African, East African, Asian. We are Minnesota. And I want to thank you all for taking the time, and also taking the effort, maybe coming here in fear, maybe coming here not knowing, maybe coming here for the first time to testify, because that is your right, and that is the people's right, and that is the beauty of democracy. And we thank you, members of the Transportation Committee, for giving us so much thought, whether you agree or don't agree. It's about finding the best for all Minnesotans, whether they're documented or not. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Okay. Chair Gomez, you have the last word.
Yeah,
The
thank you
author
so
of the bill.
much. Thank you, Chair Hornstein. I don't have much to say. I feel like so much has been said today. And, I know that I asked you guys at the beginning of the day, it seems like a year ago at 9:15 I invited you to listen with your hearts and your minds open. And I have been watching you all day, and you've been doing that. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank my colleagues in the GOP for really listening to people today. I think sometimes in this body, we don't listen to each other really closely, and I could tell that you were listening and that you were, you know, and that the stories that we heard impacted you. And so I thank you for that openness to this community. Thank you. And finally, I just want to say thank you to the community. Thank you for trusting Representative Perez Vega and I with this important effort. And thank you for inviting us in. And thank you for teaching us things that we didn't know. And yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. So with that, members, Vice Chair Tabke renews his motion that House File 4, as amended, be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All of those opposed?
No.
The motion prevails, and House File 4, as amended, is on its way to Judiciary. With that, members, this meeting is adjourned.